Well, the human body is surrounded by our energy field, and for sake of discussion, we say it's about as big as our outstretched arms, all around our body, a big egg-shaped field of energy. And it's an energy field that's not static, it's dynamic, it's in motion all the time, and by virtue of definition, every energy field that's in motion has a vortex or a point of rotation. In other words, that energy turns in on itself from all directions, passes through in a toroidal field and comes out, and then the whole thing rotates around that point. So when we're born, this point is located at our navel, and it begins to move up the body fairly slowly until by about age 7, if we've had a happy, well-adjusted childhood, it'll locate mid-center of the chest. In other words, if we drew a line under the arms and midline, it would locate within that crosshair region about this much higher for a girl than a boy. And it will remain there during that time or forever until we experience a trauma in our life. And the trauma can be, it's a subjective thing. Everybody experiences it differently when they experience trauma, but virtually any trauma, physical, emotional, spiritual, sexual trauma, can cause the point to shift out, and if the shift is big enough, it can't migrate back on its own, and if the trauma is often enough or strong enough, it can cause it to fracture into more than two or more pieces. So this work involves collecting them and bringing them back to that centralized place. My work is based on the work of Dr. John Whale from Britain, who is really one of the pioneers, or the pioneer, in taking the knowledge of the assemblage point to a higher level. Most people's only experience of the assemblage point is perhaps reading about it in the writings of Carlos Castaneda, where he talks about the shaman Don Juan moving the assemblage point of his apprentices by simply coming up behind them and kind of whacking the rear projection, causing it to shift somewhere so that they could experience an alternate reality. That may be interesting in and of itself, but from a kind of a clinical or a therapeutic point of view, it's not that useful just to have that happen. So we want to bring it back to this centered place. And you know, it's interesting that our English language talks about being centered without anybody really having a descriptor for what that is. And I believe it's really talking about being centered in the assemblage point. And when we have these points in different places, they are sources of information that we process subconsciously, and that subconscious processed information creates our thoughts. And then, as most of you know, our thoughts create our reality. And so when we have it in a place that is the cause of things happening within our being, and I'll just give you one quick example. If someone had a point down in the lower right side in the liver area, that person would probably be suffering from some degree of fatigue, ranging from mild to chronic, and some degree of depression, again, ranging from mild to clinical depression. Now, perchance, if that same person had a point high on the right side, right shoulder, that's the point of mania. And that person would then, depending on which point was the stronger on any given day, that person would oscillate back and forth between being manic, depressive, or bipolar. And so there are many other points, you know, anger, stress, all kinds of points down the left side of the body that deal with dementia and hallucinations and so forth. But most people, you'll find them out on the right side of the body. Very, very few you find anything out on the left. But so these are some of the things we find with the assemblage point. So during the adjustment of the assemblage point, I find it by scanning the body, by muscle testing, kinesiology, and by scanning across the body from the shoulders down to the navel. That's the only place the assemblage point exists. If it drops below the navel, that's the point of death. We die if it's down there. if we have a point down there. So I scan the body and I get a response from the client's arm or the surrogate's arm if I'm doing it distantly, and I will mark the front point. I will find the exit point again by muscle testing, and then muscle testing the back, and I'll mark them all up with corresponding colored dots. Then I test them all for strength, and I collect them in order of strength from the strongest to the weakest, and then put them into the centralized place. So that's in a short form, that's what it does. And then the person rests for 20 minutes while that's kind of locking into place. So the benefits of having your assemblage point adjusted are many, and depending on how badly it's kind of out of place and how long it's been there. But again, it creates that centered, calm feeling, that place of balance within a person. And so they're no longer kind of plagued by things manifesting in their life, created by their thoughts, created by the position of the assemblage point. It's beyond your control. And so this is the beauty of this, is that you can take someone with a few sessions who's been depressed forever and change that in a way that medications cannot change that, because they only simply mask. They don't deal with the root cause. So the benefits are a balanced, beautiful life after having your assemblage point adjusted until it holds. And once it holds, then you're good until you experience another major trauma in your life. And everybody, can do a comparison by how do I feel when this is like this, and I don't feel like that anymore. I think I need some more work. So it kind of depends what's going on in your life, the benefits of having, of what you're going to experience and what the length of time would be after being balanced. No, your adjustment doesn't need to be in person. This is one of the modalities that works very effectively using a surrogate. In other words, I have a surrogate and I make some statements of connection so that when I muscle test them, I'm in effect muscle testing the client, no matter where they are in the world. And again, I have clients all over North America and Europe, and it works just as effectively, and they report the results back, and they're pleased with what's happened. So no, it doesn't have to be in person at all. Well, how many adjustment sessions you need is really a pretty open-ended question. It's like saying how long is a piece of string? The answers are variable, and it depends how long they've been out and what else is going on in the person's life. But I'm sort of seeing a bit of an average with people, not that there is a real average, but 4 sessions seems to be enough for a lot of people. So what we do is we check it. We do the initial recheck and adjustment in 2 weeks, and then we do it once a month after that until it holds. And on the last one where it holds its place, I never charge anyone for that, just because I haven't done an adjustment, I've just done a finding. So no real how many will you need, but for most people it's around that 4 mark in total, including the last one, 3 to 4, maybe 5 the odd time. And I had a client in the office just the other day. It was her 3rd session, and she was good. She didn't need an adjustment, so she had the initial one a month later, and then a month after that, and it still held its place. So that's kind of the short end of the scale. So you can learn how to adjust the human assemblage point by coming to a workshop that I hold, and I don't do a lot of them, but I do one once in a while at various times, and I've had people travel to me from all over North America to come to learn how to do it. So you can learn how to do it. It's a 2-day workshop, and lots of practice afterwards, of course, but it can be done, and you can learn how to do it just by attending one. It's not overly difficult to learn, but like any one of these modalities, it's moving in, as a practitioner, it's moving into acceptance and moving into believing that when you're finding a spot by muscle testing, trusting in your results, trusting that you're able to do this, and the more difficult part of it is learning how to do that. But it's all covered off in the workshop, and if you have a desire to learn, you can learn.